Welcome to another episode of Kim Schmidt's Brain. This longer episode is a combination of the Amazon Virtual Machine and Storage demo, as well as the Microsoft Azure Virtual Machine and Storage demo, and the full presentation given to the Physicians Insurance Association of America on September 11, 2014. Enjoy! Hi, I'm Kim Schmidt, owner and consultant of Kim Schmidt Consulting. I'm recording this because in a couple of days I am giving this presentation to the Physicians Insurance Association of America, and I wanted to be sure that they had the entire presentation with the demos and all of the content that I wanted to talk about in one recording. So this is why I'm doing it, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you learn something, and I hope that your other computer is the cloud. Thank you very much. Hi, I'm Kim Schmidt, owner and consultant of Kim Schmidt Consulting, and I'm here today to talk about integrating cloud services into your computing environment. So how many of you, I asked during the session, are ignoring the elephant in the office? And by that, of course, I mean the cloud. You know it's there, you know you should be using it, but you just can't get yourself to go there. And I'm wondering if any of you watching this are in that same category. Because hopefully by the end of this recording, you'll not be afraid to kick that elephant right out of your office. The things I'm going to talk about today is we're going to go over a little bit about me, some cloud introductions and cloud nomenclature. We'll go over some cloud computing types. We'll go over the three major vendors. We'll go over some other services that are pertinent to the healthcare field that I don't have time to talk about. We'll touch on pricing, but the full pricing of the services that I'm going to talk about today are on the companion site that I've created for you. And then I have some really cool extras, which I call my gifts to you. And then together, hopefully, we'll come to a mutual conclusion. So about me, I'm the owner and consultant of Kim Schmidt Consulting. I have 8 industry certifications. I won Best Technology and National Microsoft competitions. One in particular was a medical imaging application that had 5 separate patentable applications within the one application. I'm an ex-Microsoft employee. I'm a Google Glass Explorer, as you can see in my picture there. I love wearables. I've been nominated to be a Google Cloud Developer Expert. And I added that last bullet point about my background in medicine and dentistry because if you look at the two major complex individual sectors, business sectors we're talking about here, technology and medicine, it really does help to have somebody that has knowledge of both. So now we're going to go over some cloud benefits. Reducing your IT expenditure is really a big one. So in a typical on-premises environment, you buy servers by guessing how many you'll need, and then you have to have expert employees set everything up and maintain it. The time to do this is usually weeks or a month. And whether these servers are on premises or you're hosting, say, a website on a hosting site, the CPU is running at 100% usage constantly, when it's been discovered that on average, servers run at about 20 to 30% all the time usage. So why waste all that CPU power and pay for it when you don't have to? On the cloud, in contrast, you can spin up and down machines within about 3 minutes with whatever operating system and other software you want. You only pay by the minute for what you use. And with auto-scaling of the servers, you're not guessing what you need like you're doing when you're setting it up on premises environment. Flexible capacity refers to the ability to auto-scale, whether up or down, depending on demand automatically. Cutting-edge computer science, well, we're going to talk about Microsoft, Amazon, and Google. And these are the big boys. So they're the ones, that's what they do. They come out with cutting-edge computer science. So when they have it ready to roll out, it will also be in the cloud. So that is why I'm covering these major vendors. Cutting-edge computer science, well, we're talking about Microsoft, Amazon, and Google, and that's just what they do. So when they come out with a new product or cutting-edge technology, it's going to be available in the cloud. Storage redundancy is accomplished by regions and availability zones. Regions provide protection. If a natural disaster occurs in one region, they'll spin up another machine in another region so that you don't have any downtime. Availability sets protect instances in the same location but on different servers. Azure gives geo-redundant storage by default, maintaining 6 copies of your data, 3 in each location, and Amazon stores your data across multiple facilities and multiple devices within a facility. Speed and agility refers to the fast computational workloads, quick development and testing, or frequent stopping and starting your virtual machines or applications on these companies' fast networks. You can configure auto-scaling based on a schedule you provide, or have it be based on CPU usage of your instances. And they're all automatically provided load balancing so that each user gets a consistent experience. Always on depends on the cloud provider or the service that you're using, but out of these 3 cloud providers, I'm going to claim that for most services, they claim around 99.9% uptime. Managed services are provided based upon which services you're using, as you'll see in the next slide. However, there are additional services that provide additional health monitoring, alerts, and more management for you. Maintenance, again, depends on the services that you are renting in the cloud, but planned maintenances are done by the cloud, like updates. And that's where your availability zones come in handy, because they'll spin one machine down while they're doing the patching and the other one down right after, so they're both not down at the same time. Unplanned maintenances like hardware and network failure, Azure automatically migrates your virtual machines to another location, and Amazon has a service called Trusted Advisor that we'll talk about later. Security. Contrary to what many of you might be thinking, the cloud is very secure. The companies that we're talking about undergo very strict quarterly audits to find security breaches and things like that. So ensure that you have access to these audits when you sign your BAC agreement. There's also numerous services that expand your security controls and capabilities that you can add. Recovery varies by service, but there are numerous other recovery scenarios apart from the redundancy that can be put in place. So right here, let's focus on the image. You'll see 4 columns, and on the far left, they're all blue. And if you look at the far right, they're all red. What's in blue is managed by you, and what's in red is managed by the vendor. Looking at the far left column, on-premise, everything there is managed by you, including things that would be built into the cloud, like always on, redundancy, backup and recovery, server and network management, and your data. So you really better have a great DBA. Now, the first level of going to the cloud is called infrastructure as a service. You're basically renting the infrastructure to run your app and operating system. However, you get the cloud benefits that you wouldn't get on premises, like scalability, speed and agility, persistent storage, and redundancy. Moving to the third column is platform as a service. Now that's fully managed except for your applications and data, as you can see. This service group enables you to build, deploy, and scale enterprise applications with security isolation, real-time monitoring and alerts, predictable performance, auto backups, and workflows with Team Foundation Server within Visual Studio or GitHub, and I believe also Git. In software as a service, everything is managed by the cloud provider, including your data and applications. These services usually require a long-term commitment, and you need to be careful because you need to be sure that you can get everything out when you need to and that it's in a format that's consumable by you. When you're considering these 4 scenarios, you need to ask yourself, what problem am I trying to solve? What are my responsibilities and what are the provider's responsibilities? Who's responsible for my data and where's it stored? Your solution might very well be spread among any combination of these service groups. Now, the image on this slide is very generic, so I would recommend that you go to each cloud provider's website and look at how they describe private, public, hybrid, community, if they have it, for the proper documentation. But generally, this is how it works. In a public cloud, you have a public IP address that can be hacked, and you share the infrastructure in a pool with other clients. Therefore, you have limited control over the configuration, security, or availability variances. Public clouds are good for testing or project collaboration. In a private cloud, you have your own private IP addresses assigned to your organization only. This can be hosted on premises for complete control of security, configuration, and infrastructure, or hosted in the cloud, who then provide the facilitation of exclusivity and privacy. This is a good option if you want data sovereignty with cloud efficiencies. Use cases would be machine-to-machine talk, where you connect your on-prem environment to the cloud for compliance and security. A hybrid cloud is a combination of 2 or more different kinds of clouds that must include a private cloud that remain unique entities but are bound together, offering the benefits of multiple deployment models. A good use case would be having your web server on the public cloud and your database server in a private cloud to protect your data from the public. Community cloud is relatively new, but in essence, it's for organizations that have one governing body that manages the security and all of the rules. A good use case for you would be a group of hospitals that has one governing body for HIPAA compliance. The vendors we'll be discussing today are Amazon through Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and the Google Cloud Platform just a little bit. Now, there's a plethora of other cloud options out there, and I used Rackspace as an example, but again, there's a plethora of other ones. Now, I'm going to mainly focus on Amazon Web Services and Microsoft Azure because I was told that most of you are Windows users. But again, I have a little surprise about Google at the end. So moving on, this slide is about Amazon EC2 virtual machines. Virtual machines are the basis of cloud computing, so this is where you need to get comfortable first. Their virtual machines are called EC2 for Elastic Cloud Compute. It's a web service that lets you create and configure computing resources that run on Amazon's computing environment. Spin-up time to boot a new machine is about 3 minutes. It has auto-scaling. It provides options to reduce common failure scenarios. You have your choice of operating systems, memory configuration, CPU configuration, and instance storage. They're secure and inexpensive, and you only pay for what you use. Now you can combine your EC2 virtual machine with many of the other Amazon cloud services, but I chose 4 that I thought would be of particular instance to this audience. So beginning in the lower left yellow section, you can rent pre-configured partner and other software and machine configurations through the AWS Marketplace. Some examples are various development environments and servers, WordPress, SAP, network infrastructure like Cisco, monitoring solutions, business intelligence solutions, content management, CRM, e-commerce, and more. Moving up to the orange section, I've added a database, and because I was told you were Windows users, I've included Amazon's relational database system, which is SQL Server. But there's many other options for your database. Moving on to the gray section, you can combine your Amazon EC2 virtual machine with websites. You can deploy .NET applications, Java applications, PHP. There's a lot of different platforms that you can use to build your website. Now, I have an icon there for S3, which is Amazon's storage that comes with virtual machines by default. And the reason that I have that there is for a couple of reasons. First of all, when you get to production, like hosting your website, you need to consider other scenarios other than the default S3 storage that comes with the virtual machine. Just like you have on-premises a storage array network where some storage units are optimized for redundancy, some for being super fast, some for guaranteed I/O rates, you'd want to do that same kind of thing and think about it when you go to production in the cloud. Now that icon is also there because when I do the S3 demo, I have a little surprise for you. Lastly, in the blue section, Workspaces is a new, extremely awesome service that I'll discuss later in the presentation. Azure virtual machines are literally called Azure virtual machines. You can create a virtual machine with a bootable operating system or bring in your own VHD file, virtual hard drive, made from a vendor like VMware or others. You could even upload a virtual hard drive to store your data and then access that data from your other virtual machines. Azure virtual machines are used to provision on-demand and very scalable computing infrastructures, but you're still responsible for the operating system and other software updates. Azure virtual machines are auto-scalable. They have built-in virtual networking and load balancing. And again, you can combine your Azure virtual machine with many of the other Azure services that are provided, but again, I've chosen 4 that I think pertain especially to this audience. So starting in the lower left yellow section, you can rent pre-configured partner software and Microsoft software from the Azure gallery. And there's many different configurations. So moving up to the orange section, again, you can combine your Azure virtual machine with a database. And again, I chose SQL Server because I was told you guys are Windows users, but there's many other types of databases that you could combine with your virtual machine as well. Moving to the gray section, you can deploy .NET, Java, and other platforms to Azure websites simply by choosing a language, and it then knows the platform. And then in the blue section, in Azure Store, you can purchase non-Microsoft add-ons such as Redis Cache for fast data access or Dun & Bradstreet for high-quality data ready for actionable insight. Now, I explained in the presentation that I recorded these demos for two reasons. The first one being that I usually attend tech conferences, which means every person there has at least one laptop, probably a tablet, a couple of smartphones, and probably some wearables. So the bandwidth is absolutely awful. And I didn't want that to interfere with the demonstrations that I was giving in my presentation. But more importantly, I recorded them so that you could watch them over individually. But in this comprehensive video, I'm going to include them as well, so you could just pretty much watch my presentation over again. So I'm going to start with an Amazon EC2 virtual machine demo, and then move on to Azure virtual machine demo. So let's create an Amazon EC2 virtual machine. You could go to the AWS homepage and click on Create a Free Account, but for the sake of time, I have an account, so I'm going to go to my Management Console. And from here, you're going to click on EC2 Virtual Servers in the Cloud. And I'm going to show you my running instances or stopped or terminated instances here for a moment. You can just quick launch an instance to just spin up something to test something, or you can create an AMI, which is an Amazon Machine Image. When you create an AMI, this is the benefit. If you right-click on it, you can create an image. And when you create an image, what you're doing is you're creating a snapshot. So that is really handy to go back to if you're going to want to return to that particular virtual machine over and over again. And you can also then allow your coworkers to spin up that instance because, let's say, their workstation has the same configuration as yours. But today, what we're going to do is we are just going to launch an instance. And you do get a choice from the default AMIs that they have here. And I'm going to choose Windows Server 2012 with SQL Server Express. Click Select. I'm going to leave this instance type eligible at the free tier and click Review and Launch. Now I'm getting a warning here because I haven't edited security groups, so this virtual machine could be hacked. But for the sake, for this demo, it's really not that important, so I'm just going to launch it. Now when you launch an EC2 instance, the security is configured with a public-private key pair. So what you're going to want to do is click on the drop-down list, create a new pair, and then you're going to name it Kim's Key Pair, and then you're going to click on Download the Key Pair. Now you can see down here, it's downloaded as a PEM file, and that extension means it's a private key. So that's in my download folder right now, which is okay. So I have it in a safe place, and you really don't want to keep it in your downloads folder, but for the sake of the demo again, it'll be fine. And then click on Launch Instance. Right here, this is the instance ID. If you click on it, you can see it's spinning up. And under this name field is this edit pencil where you could give this instance a name. So let's call this PIAAEC2 demo. You can name it anything you want. You could name it via configuration or date or by roles. It's totally up to you. So once the instance state says running, you can click Connect. The first thing it asks you to do is to download the remote desktop or RDP file. So you're going to click that, and you can see that it's downloaded into my downloads folder. And you're given a public IP and a username. So what you're going to want to do, I've already created a little text document, and this is good practice, is to Control C and then Control V, the IP address, and I already knew that it was going to be administrator. And then you're going to click on Get Password. So it's telling me that when I created this instance, as you can see in the background here, the key name that I gave it was kimskp.pem. I really like that they remind you of what it is, because if you have a lot of instances running, it's really hard to keep track of. So we know that this is in my downloads folder, and it's asking me to choose the file. So I'm going to go to my downloads folder, and I'm going to look for Kim's KP. So you're going to want to decrypt it. And once you decrypt it, again, you're going to very carefully, no white space, Control C, bring over that text file again, and then Control V, and then save it. And minimize it. And then close it. So what we're going to do next is we're going to double click on the RDP file. We're going to say connect. It's asking me now for that password, which is why it's really handy to have it in a text document. So you be very careful again, no white space, Control C, Control V, and click OK. When you're presented with this, you just say yes. You can see that it is a remote desktop connection to Windows Server 2012 R2. And you can see that, yes, indeed, we have a Windows Server 2012 instance and SQL Server 2014, because you see the Management Studio that downloads with it. And it's as easy as that. Okay, let's watch the Azure VM demo. Now we're moving on to the next most important part of cloud services, storage. On this page, we're going to go over Amazon Web Services storage, which is S3, and it stands for Simple Storage Service. It's a file storage holding objects and metadata, and it's the default storage account for the internet because it auto-scales, it's secure, fast, inexpensive, and can hold practically unlimited amounts of data. Data is stored in buckets for granular access control, and you'll see in Azure, they're stored in containers for the same reason. Now, again, I've chosen 4 of the many services that I could combine with a storage instance, but again, I chose services that I believe will benefit you the most. So starting in the lower left, bronze section, I combine my storage with big data. In Amazon Web Services, their implementation of Hadoop is called Elastic MapReduce. But there's others like Redshift that is a petabyte scale data warehouse. Moving up to the gray section, you can combine your storage with a service called Glacier. And Glacier is a file archive and backup service that's at extremely low pricing for secured and durable, yet infrequently used data. And that's the key, infrequently used. Moving over to the gold section, again, you can combine your storage instance with a database. And again, I've included Amazon's relational database system, SQL Server, but there are many other database types to choose from, and you need to choose the one that fits what you're trying to solve and the data that you're going to be holding. Moving down to the orange section is a service called CloudFront. Now that's a content delivery web service with high transfer, low latency due to the fact that it copies your entire site locally where it's being requested from. So low latency because it's nearer to the person requesting it, and so it gets to the user faster. The main features for you, however, would be the advanced security options. CloudFront guards against eavesdropping of encrypted data, and yes, that does happen. There's an option for Amazon to handle your private keys, and it also has the ability to do what's called the secure socket layer handshake once and hang on to it, which is making that secure connection, which in real time is nothing, but in compute time it's significant, so that when a user starts and resumes their session, after the first time, it'll be lightning fast. The storage on Amazon is called a Blob, and that stands for Binary Large Objects. It's a file storage that stores massive amounts of text and binary data, such as documents, media, application installers, and more. It's highly scalable. It can store hundreds of terabytes of data and handle millions of requests per second. It has auto-partitioning that auto-load balances your data based on traffic, which is pretty cool. So again, I have highlighted 4 of the many services that Azure has with the Blob file storage based on what I think would be of most interest to you. Starting in the lower left bronze section, I've combined the Blob storage with big data because I'm sure a lot of you in the medical field are using big data already. Now, Microsoft's implementation of Hadoop is called HD Insight. The other icon you see is machine learning. It's a new service in preview mode, but it's so useful to you in your field, and I'll go into the reasons why later in this presentation. And by the way, one of my friends who's a data scientist is giving a free webinar in about 8 days online, And like I said, he's a data scientist, and he's doing a free webinar on how to use this new service, machine learning, in Azure. And I recommend that you watch it. A link to his webcast is on the companion site. Going up to the gray section, you can combine your Blob with Azure Backup. And that's Microsoft's implementation of file archiving and backup. If you move over to the gold section, I've combined it with a database. And again, I used the icon for a SQL Server database, but there's many other options for database types. Finally, in the orange section, I combine the Blob with Azure Cache. This provides highly scalable and responsive applications because it keeps the data in memory for fast retrieval. Good use cases of this would be for search engines, online recommendations like Amazon and other sites use based on your past online behavior, virtual assistants, and the like. But for you, the primary benefit is insurance fraud detection by its ability for you to configure whatever filters or patterns you define, or by combining data structures to model real-time statistics to power anti-spam or fraud prevention and flagging. So it's demo time again, and I'm going to first show you an Amazon S3 storage demo, and then I'm going to show you an Azure Blob demo. So now let's create an AWS storage bucket. Go to My Management Console and click on S3 Scalable Storage in the Cloud. As I mentioned before, S3 is a file storage which can contain the file and whatever metadata that comes along with it, but it can also do some pretty awesome things that you wouldn't think. What I've done here is I click on this particular bucket that I've created. It loads the properties on the right-hand side. And if I click on static website hosting, I configured this bucket to be a storage place for a website. And how you can confirm that that is truly hosted within an Amazon S3 storage bucket is by clicking on the endpoint that was created when I configured this to be this bucket to be a static website hosting storage place. So I'm going to click on it, and there's your companion site. So it is hosted within an S3 storage bucket. So let's go ahead and create a new bucket. You give it a bucket name. Let's call this PIAA S3. And then you choose the region that you want it to be available at. And I'm going to keep it at US Standard, and then create. Now, if I double click it, it's empty. But from this interface right here, as quick as double clicking, I can upload things simply by dragging and dropping. So I have this text file here. I'm going to drop into this area and then say start upload. So now it has this text file was really small file, fast upload, but it is in a storage bucket in Amazon Web Services. So let's click on it and ensure that it truly is here. So you can tell by the URL that it is, and it's a text document that just says this is how easy it is to literally drag and drop assets into your Amazon S3 storage instance. And that's it. Okay, let's go move on to the final demo, Azure Blob Storage. So let's now create an Azure Blob Storage instance. Again, to save time, you go to My Account, My Management Portal, I filter down to storage and click on New. So it's smart enough to know it's under Data Services, Storage, and there's one option. And that's because Azure uses Blob storage by default, just like Amazon uses S3 storage by default. So let's click Quick Create. Now I'm going to choose the name of the URL, and I'm going to call it the Blob 50. And notice that there is a wildcard in the path, which I'll explain about later on. Then you choose your location or affinity group, and I'm going to choose Eastern US, and out of the replication, I'm going to leave it geo-redundant, and then click on Create Storage Account. Now, I want to show you while this is spinning up that in contrast to Amazon storage that had that nice built-in drag and drop user interface to put things in your storage, you have to download a third-party tool with Microsoft Azure. So you go, you click on the instance of the virtual machine, you go to Get the Tools, click on Storage Explorers, and then on this page you scroll down a bit. My favorite happens to be Azure Storage Explorer. And you're taken to a site called Codeplex, and you simply want to just download the file. Now, I've already done that. So let's return to our Azure portal, and the Blob 50 is already online. So let's highlight it and click on Manage Access Keys. So this is where creating a text document, again, is really handy. So I already have the storage account name, the Blob 50, even though it's all lowercase. And I'm going to click Copy the Primary Access Key. And I'm going to Control V it. I'm going to click on the secondary access key. And I'm going to Control V that. And then I'm going to hit Save and Minimize. And then click OK. So if I were to click on this, one thing I wanted to show you on the dashboard is the reason for that wildcard in the URL is that by default, when you get a blob storage on Azure, you also get a table and a queue. And if you look at the endpoints here, in between the Blob 50 and core.windows.net is where the wildcard is. One says blob, one says table, one says queue. Now, tables and queues are out of the scope of this talk, so we're just going to concentrate on the blob. So I'm going to click here to copy the endpoint, bring up my text document again, and Control V it and save it. So at this point, we have the endpoint, we have 2 access keys and the name of the storage account. So we need to click on containers, because just like Amazon storage was kept in buckets, Azure storage is within containers. And the reason that they do that is so that you can have nested containers or buckets, and you can have granular access control on each of those. So let's click on Create a Container, and let's call this for you the PIAA container. And we're going to make this a public container for this demo and click OK. So if I double click here, the container is empty. So now we are going to go to that third-party tool, the Azure Storage Explorer, and we're going to say Add Account. And again, this is where a text document comes in handy. The storage account name is the Blob 50. Bring up the text document. because it's asking next about the storage account key. It wants your primary access key. And you need to be very careful not to add any white space to this. So once it's highlighted, you do Control-C to copy it and go back here and Control-V to paste it. You leave these endpoints because that was the endpoint for all three types of blob, queue, and table. And then you're going to test the access. And the account access was successful. So then you click Save. And what that does is it adds the Blob 50 to the list of all the other kinds of storage accounts I have. And here's the container I named for you. And when I click on that, this now is the drag and drop, well, upload, download interface for Microsoft Azure storage. So I've saved an image on the desktop for you, so I'm going to navigate to that. And upload it, and it's going to show up right here. Now, this particular application is on your work desk or at home. So let's minimize this and go back to the Azure portal. So now when I click on the PIA container, it actually has that image that I just uploaded through that interface. And how we can confirm that, yes, indeed, it is hosted in a Blob storage container is by copying the URL, going to a new tab, and right-clicking and say Paste and Go. So I want to pause here and let you read what's on the image, but I hope you realize that it might seem daunting at first to get started on the cloud, but what I've shown you here today, compute, which are the virtual machines, and storage are the two major portions. So I would start there. I'd also start with a free account and play around, and then as you practice, you will learn how all the facets fit together, and then you'll learn exactly what you need in order to, when you're ready to move your entire enterprise to the cloud. And you don't have to do that. You can just have some of it or use it as needed. But let's get that elephant out of the office because it doesn't belong there. It's not as scary as you think. So now I'm going to touch on some other cloud services that I've chosen out of all the cloud services offered by both Amazon and Azure. And I've highlighted the services that I think are very relevant to the healthcare industry. So there's a column for Amazon and there's a column for Azure. And you'll see they're not mutually exclusive. And by all means, they aren't complete. But these are very important for you. So networking is very important to you because of the Health Information Privacy Act. You have to ensure you have very strong encryption when data travels over the wire. Security is also very important to you because of the HIPAA laws and the High-Tech Act. Auditing is important because you want to monitor your cloud service. So as I mentioned before, the cloud services are audited quarterly for security breaches and more, so ensure you have access to that information when you sign your BAC agreement. Mobile is important since many healthcare professionals today use tablets or smartphones to read or access patient information. Video streaming could be important for your internal or patient training. Now, up to here, everything was offered in both Amazon and Azure. But going down from here, the services I'm going to describe are only offered on one cloud provider or the other. So Workspaces is under Amazon. And what they are office workstations in the cloud. These workstations are accessible not only from laptops, but iPads, Kindle Fire, and tablets. Having your office workspaces in the cloud saves you money. They're fully managed, and they can integrate with your Office's Active Directory. Now, right below that is Zocalo in limited preview, but the functionality is similar to SharePoint's document sharing and collaboration. Now, if you put the two together, Workspaces and Zocalo, you have cloud workstations and cloud document collaboration, which is really neat. Machine learning for Azure is super cool. It's a combination of true machine learning and data mining. Microsoft now has a drag and drop interface with pre-built libraries of experiments and algorithms, very complex algorithms like neural networks, and you guys can relate to what that complexity is, to mine historical data and predict future trends or behaviors. The prediction rate of these algorithms is extremely high, amazingly high. So without having to have a data scientist on hand to do your predictive analytics, with Azure Machine Learning, you can implement this yourself. Now, this is another very, very, very good way to detect insurance fraud. Moving back to Amazon, Trusted Advisor ensures you provision your cloud resources by following best practices. And as of last July, 4 major security checks are free. So we only touched on pricing on the free tier, and just for a little bit because everything's on the companion site. So what you're looking at here is just a screenshot of Amazon's free tier, just the upper portion, so it's not complete. But basically, they give you a free year to try out everything so that by the time you're ready to move to the cloud, you know exactly what you want and how to use it. Normally, pricing in the cloud, the things you pay for are compute, storage, and data transfer out, or egress. Again, this is a very simple slide of Azure's cloud pricing and their free trial. Again, more detail is on the companion site, but they give you 1 month free trial of $200 to spend on all Azure services, like you see in the bottom right blue box. Now, this is my favorite page. I call it my gifts page to you. So starting on the far left, as of last spring, Google offers not only Linux virtual machines, but also Windows Server 2008 virtual machines. Now, it's maturing, but I wouldn't take my eye off it. Think about Google's search engine and how fast that is. Your apps would be running on that same network. In the lower yellow section there is a link to my friend Lynn Langett's YouTube video on how to spin up a Windows virtual machine on Google's compute engine. Moving to the center green area, a friend of mine who's an ex-Microsoft CTO has the only company in the country focusing only on HIPAA-compliant cloud and only on Amazon. The company is called Cloudticity. Their patient portals help achieve high-tech mandated meaningful use certification, resulting in government subsidies to entities adhering to the guidelines up to $26 billion annually. And he's helped many of his clients achieve receiving millions and millions. The Health Information Exchange he has helps providers exchange medical records so each patient's record is complete. This lowers treatment costs and ensures optimal patient outcomes. Leading-edge companies in the medical field are now combining data from wearables like Fitbit, patient-reported information, insurance records, labs, hospitals, clinics, and the patient's family, and Cloudticity can help you with that. Their exclusive contract with Amazon allows them to build these systems in a highly secure, HIPAA-compliant manner with limitless performance and storage at very low prices. Now, if you look at the right-hand column, I can't warn you enough to be very careful when signing the BAC agreement that I've been referring to many times in this presentation, which stands for the Business Associate Contract or Agreement. If you do this by yourself, you will be translating legalese to technology terms to medical terms, which isn't an easy task. And you won't know if anything is missing. So please use a very specialized attorney with a fine-tooth comb going over that agreement for you. Or you use a specialty service like Cloudticity for your own peace of mind and let them handle everything for you. I have another gift for you. And that star wasn't on your original slides. I put it in just the other day because another friend of mine, Scott Guthrie, the Executive Vice President of the Cloud and Enterprise Group at Microsoft, has given you promo codes to a 3-month subscription to Azure Pass. He got together a group of people and they arranged for this for the attendees of my session here. It's very generous of them, and it's really good for proof of concepts, and I personally want to thank Scott and everybody else that has helped make this happen. The conclusion is the cloud is ubiquitous, less expensive, and worth the learning curve. And I can't emphasize enough to get legal advice on the BAC agreement or use a service like Cloudticity for your peace of mind and let them handle everything. The website you see there is the companion site that has a full video of the demos, me presenting this. It has the demos by themselves if you just want to watch those, and it has much more information for you on things that I couldn't cover in detail today, such as the pricing structures. And you can always contact me at that email address for other speaking opportunities, for questions, or for other consulting. And feel free to follow me on Twitter. I don't tweet as often as I should, but I have 2 Twitter handles. One is Data Leader and the other is Wearable Queen. So thank you very much for watching this video. Thank you for watching this episode of Kim Schmidt's Brain. You can always contact me for consulting at kimschmidt101@gmail.com. Thank you.